Hello and welcome back to Last Epoch, and welcome to my very first build video. Fellow Paladins, you might have been just like me, a new player who decided that Paladin appeals to you, but with so many build options for Endgame, you might be unsure of what you're actually going to do. The fact is, you can level as pretty much anything easily in that story section, but if you were looking to max blast through that, it's very likely you ended up on the very popular Holy Trail Javelin, just like I did. While Holy Trail can serve you into the true late game, you will need to adapt it for the incoming damage and better DPS potential that's going to be needed. And instead of leaning into that, why not progress the build into something stronger and actually a lot more engaging gameplay wise? That was my plan. A natural progression for Holy Trail then is this fantastic and classic Judgement build. It has you burst kill everything in your sight in one button press, then you snap back in time to recover all the mana that was used for that, and then rely on Hate, Javelin and Holy Trail in between that familiar playstyle, which then makes your next Judgement even stronger. With this setup, we're able to lunge back to back for insane mobility as a paladin, allowing for really good mob clear and therefore great leveling as you push towards level 100 now. We'll rely still on things like damage over time effects, healing effectiveness, fire damage, and other key stats that you're actually already using in your Holy Trail build, making it a smooth transition. It's friendly on the gearing process as it's completely functional without uniques, and with say the mobility and self-sustained healing that I have, the raw DPS potential that's great for the boss fights, it's just great for pushing these monoliths and getting to empowered monoliths. Let's now cover the main details of the build for you to follow, and then I'll also do a quick live gameplay guide to explain it. Okay, so let's explain the build, starting of course with the passive trees and the skills. The skills of course are Judgement, Holy Aura, Javelin, Lunge, and Volatile Reversal. I've got them all just under level 20, and there's a couple swaps I plan to make, but let me show you what I'm doing. Firstly, the main damage ability is Judgement. This comes by progressing your Paladin tree to the point that you actually unlock it as a skill. It's this powerful, potent hit that causes this holy aura on the ground, which actually deals damage to enemies and then heals you if you stand in it. We're able to convert it into this AoE around us though that deals incredible damage. That is by going up through here, spending 2 points to progress to Lingering Force. That causes it to last longer, up to 60% increase, and then Anointed, which turns it into a consecrating aura surrounding you, but also means it costs more mana and has a longer cooldown. Since we're going to make this ability cost all our mana, we don't care about that. Speaking of which, we'll come from the center and come to Divine Destruction just to get to Pious Offering. It causes it to consume even more mana. At 5 out of 5, it's all your mana, but it generates more damage per mana that you actually spend. So the bigger your mana pool, the more damage that Judgement will do. Then we'll come down to Destructive Impact to make it a larger area. Just 2 points in Swift Verdict so we can force our way to Flaming Soul, where all of our points are going to go. Consecrated Ground deals more damage, and that is obviously very good. I'm still leveling, so I'm still putting points into that, but of course I'm going to put every point I can get into that from here on. If you can get levels of Judgement on your relic, then that is very good. Next we have the classic Holy Aura. This is basically a buff for yourself for a little bit. Gain 30% increased damage, 15% additional element resistance. I grab Shelter from the Storm so that we get extra element resistance and endurance. 2 points into Vital Boom to progress to the next area where we can increase the healing effectiveness. This is one of the main stats of the build. The more healing effectiveness you actually have, the more healing you get, sure, but also the more damage those types of abilities do to enemies. With Purification, it also gives us great poison resistance and cleanses ailments. We can go 1 point into Devotion here just so we can get to the Fury Fire Pen. One of the main scaling tags of Judgement is fire, so increasing our penetration is going to make that way stronger. Then as you can see, I'm spending my final points on Burning Blows to increase the global fire damage relevant to Judgement. The last point I'll be spending at 20 is of course the last point in Burning Blows here. Next we have Javelin, which is basically our filler button when we can't Judgement, but it does actually make our Judgement stronger. We'll initially work our way through Mighty Delivery, up through Burning Strength to Spear to the thigh, causing Javelin to deal more damage over time. This is very important when we're looking at Holy Trail, which causes that Holy Light Aura, which is actually fire and lightning damage. Enemies that walk through it will die. You can even scale this with healing effectiveness. With 1 point in Path of Judgement, it'll also get additional spell damage based on your healing effectiveness, as I just said. And with 4 points into Pilgrimage, Javelin will deal more fire and lightning damage. And importantly, you have a chance to ignite and electrify enemies with melee attacks while Javelin's on cooldown. So as you put Javelin on cooldown, suddenly your Judgement, which counts as a melee, actually has that effect of stacking up the fire and lightning dot. On the other end, we'll come down to Serrated just so we can progress to excellent balance, which then lets us get to perfect setup, which then lets us get to what we actually care about, Sacred Forge. Directly using Javelin hitting an enemy causes your next Judgement to deal more damage. So by throwing your Javelin, you're making your next Judgement stronger, and that's where all my points are going to go. I'm going to get this to 3 out of 4, and then I'm probably going to drop a level from Spear to the Thigh to get Sacred Forge to 4 out of 4. Lastly, we have the all-important Volatile Reversal. This is really important. It's kind of a required ability because Judgment's going to use all of our mana, so we go back in time by 2 seconds, recovering all of our mana, which means we need to reduce this cooldown as much as we can. You can see how Judgement comes back well before Volatile Reversal when I'm just standing here. So by progressing through Time Sap, we might get a percentage of that cooldown cut off as we're killing enemies. And then with Time Lost Vitality, it has a significantly shorter cooldown, but it's not actually going to restore health to whatever we were at 2 seconds ago. That's a major cooldown reduction section there. Coming down to the left, we're going to start creating Void Rifts. We go 3 points into Dark Expanse just to progress to Harbinger of Dust. Those Void Rifts cause enemies to take increased damage for 4 seconds. A big debuff, and especially good in boss fights. Down to the bottom right here, we have Traveler's Fatigue. It causes the reversal to have a shorter cooldown at the cost of health regen while it's on cooldown. Well worth it, because all we care about is cutting that cooldown as much as we can. Then we come up to the top right, going through Void Rift and Disintegration for the points of 1 and 3, so that we can actually reach Time Rifts, meaning the Void Rifts that we're generating cause even more damage over time. Really important again in single target. The final point that I'm going to be spending to get 20 out of 20 is going to be here on Time Sap to help cut the cooldown when I'm killing things. So those are the skills and specializations. On the other hand, we have the passives. We go 20 points into Sentinel, of course, 8 out of 8 Juggernaut for the Strength, Fire Res, and Void Res. 1 point in Fearless is just a bit of Vitality, which allows us to get 1 point in Stalwart, just giving us a higher chance to block hits and also take less damage when we do block. We are using a shield, so it's quite a good percentage of DR for 1 point. Of course, we got 5 out of 5 in Armored Clad for the big armor and damage reduction from nearby enemies. 5 out of 5 Valiant Charge gets us to 20 points spent, increasing cooldown recovery for movement skills and also giving us some health. Then, of course, we have our Paladin Mastery. We've got 8 points in Defiance. This gives us Attunement. Attunement actually gives you mana and also increases the power of Judgment at the same time, so it's quite a nice double up, as well as the element resistances. 1 point in Honor allows us to get to Heavenfire, extra spell damage while we have a shield equipped, perfect. I've got 5 points in Valor right now. This is going to scale our healing effectiveness, which, as I've said, is going to increase our damage. We've got 7 out of 7 Holy Icon, again, maximizing healing effectiveness there. Then we can reach the Guardian here, 8 out of 8 for more armor and spell damage with shield. 1 point in Shield Wall gives us a high chance to block and even get a bit of health back, but it means we can't dodge, so that stat's no longer relevant to us. Then we can go into Reverence here, extra health, increased damage, increased healing effectiveness, and mana. That's all perfect for the build. I'm currently leveling up Conviction to give us extra fire damage and fire pen as the main things there. And once that's done, I'm going to go to the end here and fill this out 12 out of 12, increasing fire damage and also move speed, which is nice. With the remaining points, I'm going to buff out what's left, like Valor, and I'm also definitely going to consider Dedication for the attunement and mana regen that offers. You can also see that I've got 10 points in Void Knight. This is very important. You actually only need to spend 5 and then you'll unlock Volatile Reversal, our key skill. So you will have to do that and do that pretty early. But 10 out of 10 is worth it because we get a big chunk of physical res, void res, and health. It is very nice. If you're lacking on either void or physical resistance, then it's definitely worth it. If not, you could avoid that and just spend 5. And I also sneak 1 point into Forge Guard on the way whenever I can. It just gives me significantly better block effectiveness and a little bit of block chance. Okay, so now it's time to talk about gear. The affixes we need are going to power the build, so understanding that's very important. As I said, you want levels of Judgment if you can get them on your relic as like the most important possible thing, because it's a major DPS increase, as we talked about in the skill section. But outside of that, what you're looking for is mana. That could be raw mana or percent increased mana like we have here on the chest, because as we know, the more mana you spend on a Judgment, the more damage it's going to do. Outside of that, healing effectiveness is going to be one of the main ways you can increase your survivability and your damage at the same time, so it's absolutely incredible. Then cooldown recovery speed is vital as well to help get Void Reversal's cooldown down as much as possible. Attunement is really good too because, as I've been saying, it's going to give us mana and it's going to increase the power of Judgment as well. As you can see, it scales with Attunement. Also, if you get any damage over time, such as element damage over time, fire damage over time, or just raw damage over time, those are going to scale damage great too. So those are the main stats I'm looking for. I've got mana on my helmet here. I've got Attunement and mana on my chest. I've got healing healing effectiveness on my shield and also my amulet. I've got mana and mana regen and spell damage and mana on my wand, even fire pen. Lots of cooldown recovery wherever we can get. Fire damage, healing effectiveness there. Element damage over time, mana regen, even more cooldown recovery speed there. Lots of healing effectiveness and fire damage here. And the one unique that I'm running, Hand of Judgment, which is giving us attunement, fire pen, and a bit of CDR for Judgment 2. So those are the affixes and what we're running, and that's what comes into play when we consider your idols. Right now, I do not have an ideal setup, but it's anything that's going to increase the main things we just talked about. Healing effectiveness, mana, damage over time, element damage over time, and things of that nature. So we've got increased fire damage over time here, lots of healing effectiveness and damage over time, and also mana and increased fire damage at the same time is also great. You got the Wrathful version here for the increased fire damage over time, but then there's the Adorned version, which are these 4 slots, giving us major increased healing effectiveness as well. When it comes to blessings, I'm currently working on it. Obviously, I have not got the ones I want unlocked, but the ones you're looking for are things like Light of the Moon, that's going to give you an extra 50 mana, and any that provides, say, random element resistances you need, health, and blessings that help you get the drops you need. Those are what you're looking for. Now, in regards to the gear that I'm actually running, I'm going to give you a bunch of different options. As you can see, I'm running a Xur Solarium Great Helm because that comes with increased fire damage. We have a Mana Fused Solarium Plate. Again, that has increased fire damage as an implicit. My belt is the Rejuvenating Noble Sash because that comes with mana as the implicit. I was running 2 opal rings for the increased cooldown recovery speed, but I did find a purple that has the same thing, which has been awesome. The wands specifically are all crystal wands. These come with massive spell damage and mana, which is incredible. For shield, you're looking for block chance and block effectiveness on those implicits that you can get. I've gone with a bone amulet because those come with physical and necrotic resistance, really helping you buff those up, but something that helps you with mana could be considered. We've got Solarium Greaves, sensing a theme here, giving us nice armor and movement speed. I'm going with the Solar Commandment Relics because they come with base fire damage and healing effectiveness. And then the one unique that I've got right now is Hand of Judgment for obvious reasons. As some alternatives, I would consider Woven Flesh, which I was running for a while for some nice leech. If you can get them, Aterra's Path have been great for me. Lots of health, lots of movement speed, and even a little bit of increased healing effectiveness. An alternative helmet would be the Winged Helms. These give you movement speed as well, which can be nice for early clearing. And you could definitely consider Spider Silk Belts for the raw poison and cold resistance they provide. Glove-wise, I think it's pretty damn close between Hand of Judgment and, say, Arcane Braces that come with armor and mana and even mana regen. And if you can get the right affixes on those, it can be good and is very competitive with this unique. So it's not even required. But yeah, that's the gear that I'm running, why, and what I'm looking for, and alternative options. Right, so now I've quickly jumped into an Echo and Monolith just to show you some basic gameplay. The idea is that you're going to slam a Judgment, which can do nice damage, but the main damage is actually the consecrated ground that occurs around you after you use it. So I slam it, and then I get this buff. And then I use Volatile Reversal to go back in time 2 seconds ago, and that recovers all my mana. So this is the most damaging thing I can do. I can slam a Judgment, get my mana back, and then I wait for Judgment to come back and Volatile Reversal, because you mess this up when you can't do that. So right now, I'm strong as hell, and right now, I'm weak as hell. Now I'm out of mana, my Judgments are really weak. If I go back with Volatile Reversal, I've got no mana. This is the worst case scenario. So it's very important that you're only actually casting Judgment when you can recover all of your mana, or at least a big chunk of it, pretty much immediately after cast. So that's why, Judgment and Volatile Reversal together are so important. Around that, we have Holy Aura, which is just going to be like a damage buff as well as defensive buff, and that just benefits everything, including, say, the Judgment, that consecration, and of course the Holy Trail effect of the Javelin. The Javelin and the Holy Trail is how we deal damage outside of Judgment and Volatile Reverse combo, so that we're able to have, some way to deal damage even when we're completely out of mana. And then we have Lunge for not 1, but 2 little dashes to get us around. That's pretty important, because let's say I jump over here, Judgment, I go back, well now I've got to go back over there, so having that, dash with Lunge to get straight back in there, it's very important. Also for our build, Javelin will actually increase the damage of our next Judgment. So throwing that and then Judgmenting is actually a damage increase. But to keep it simple for the gameplay guide is basically just dash to where you need to go, slap a Judgment, get your mana back, jump back in there and push yourself at sort of melee range against packs and enemies that you really want to damage. Make sure you're never messing up your mana pool by using Judgment when you can't Volatile Reversal and get all your mana back. Really, it just takes like a little bit of getting used to, like any build that you're going to try play for the first time. But as you can see, it is incredibly effective at clearing out packs instantly, even though I'm dealing with level 90 plus content and I'm literally level 72 right now. You can see how this doesn't challenge me at all, and that says a lot about the power of the build. But there you have it. That's my little overview of my current Judgement build and my incoming plans or aims to improve it even more. As I've been saying, it's been incredible and a real improvement from the Holy Trail leveling I was doing on the way. It's got that right amount of more engaging details to say, manage my mana, zip around with the reversals and lunges and time that correctly. The mobility itself is just so good for a Paladin, which doesn't seem to have a lot of options for that. So from all the different endgame options for builds you have, this is the one that I would strongly recommend pushing into that true endgame. But yeah, for now, that's my first build guide for Last Epoch. I hope that was okay. I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in future builds.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.